This is an overview of our 1987 3.2 Carrera Targa. It's a car that was shipped to us from Ontario, up in Canada. We did a full rebuild of this car, which I'm going to give you a brief overview on and point out just some of the, let's call it some of the finer details that, I don't know, I guess you guys might be somewhat interested in. Okay, so quick introduction to the 3.2 Carrera, available from 84 to 88 effectively. It replaced the SC, 3.2 motor. It came out in various compression derivatives based on which part of the world you were based in, but we're not going to get into that detail. Key difference is that there's an engine management system versus the Cagetronic carburation. Leads to a very comfortable, very smooth drive in terms of carburation. The extra kind of kick from the 3.2 is evident, especially in the markets that got the slightly higher compression. It is, by all intents, kind of the, I guess, the pinnacle in terms of development of the G series body before the 3.2 was replaced by the 964. A lot of components shared between the 964 and the 3.2, in fact, more than what a lot of people realize. But a very obvious one, specifically for this car, her being a 1987 model, is that she carries a G50 gearbox. It's the gearbox that replaced the 915 box. A lot of people prefer the G50 box. It's got some kind of assistance in there in terms of hydraulic assistance. It's very smooth. It's personally preference, whichever you prefer. The 915 is a lot more notchy, a little bit more classic, if you want to call it that, whereas the G50 starts to feel like a really contemporary box. So this car has got a G50 box, 3.2 motor, which we have totally rebuilt. In fact, let's get to that at the end. Let's talk aesthetics first, just so that you can get an idea of what you're looking at. Okay, so anybody that's familiar with these cars will quickly realize and point out that a 1987 3.2 Carrera did not have bright trim, so it did not have the bright detailing that you're seeing here in terms of the surrounds, the frames on the windows, and the Targa bar, and various little bits of details which are chrome. We've taken the liberty, specifically in this case, to do that. This car is built for an architect, in fact, who has a son, and they both share a number of passions. And in fact, this is a joint project between the two of them, which they're sharing. It's got a little code name of 6804, which is the birth dates, effectively 1968 and 2004, for the father and son respectively. So this car in fact comes out in two guises. We've built it in such a way that it carries a very classic look, kind of in that 1968 guise. And then and we'll talk about how we chose the colors in a second, but it can be driven as it is classic, so it appears to be super classic, which to a great extent it is, even as a 1987, but it's carrying slightly older aesthetic clues like the silver trim. You can drive it as a kind of a classic 68, or we're shipping it out with our bespoke machined 17-inch Porsche Cup 2 rims. And you bolt those on and the car just changes into what looks like then a kind of a contemporary, let's call it, interpretation of a kind of classic Targa. And I guess if you want to say that's kind of the son's version of the car versus the father's version of the car, which is classic, although I anticipate they might swap those roles at some stage. The point is that's the first time we've done this, but it's been a bit of kind of a bit of fun. It's something which I've quite enjoyed, to be honest. Just to give you an idea here, we're doing labels on our little seats and so on, which are little woven labels. There's a lovely little clue at the back of this, which is that, just find it there quickly. Yeah, there we go. So anyway, she's special for that reason. The one thing, what it does point out is, we tend to form really deep relationships with the clients that we build cars for. It's actually a wonderful privilege, to be honest, for me to be able to do this and to meet these really incredible people around the world. And this one's got an interesting backstory. Another interesting backstory about this one is that she obviously has got a fairly unique Targa hood. It's an original hood, obviously. We've just rebuilt it and we've recovered it. In fact, in a classic hood material, which we in fact sourced over from Germany. Can't see it very easily at a distance, but it's got a beautiful texture, in fact. And what that does is kind of bring a bit more classic to the car, and obviously kind of complements the color scheme. What the client has also got, which we jointly kind of like worked out, or we just shipped it directly to Canada, is a kind of a see-through mylar roof, which is a product manufactured in Germany, which allows you to have this kind of closed-off Targa, fully sealed in the snowy weather, and yet see the sky through that glass roof. We don't have it here, so I can't fit it on. But you know, by the time this video goes out, we probably won't have images of it yet because this car's shipping within a week or so. But once she gets to Canada, the client will bolt that roof on and away we go. So bottom line is, this is a car which kind of is available in two guises. You can change out her wheels to the 17-inch Cup 2s, which are our bespoke wheels with a specific Fuchs pattern on them. Or you can run her classic as she is, and she's a little bit more classic than one would expect from a 3.2. Which brings you to the next point, which is kind of a point that we've raised before that makes these cars super special, is that, you know, this is truly a classic car. So, you know, 87, 97, 2007, 17, 20, we're looking at like kind of 35 odd years old, but this car drives and is fundamentally a brand new car. The car was in good condition when we bought it. You'll find that the later cars, like, you know, the later G series and so on, are, unless badly treated, or can be in fairly good condition, totally complete. But we still stripped her down fully, and we have a parts list in the many hundreds of components that we just simply replaced because they had to be perfect. So obviously there's kind of wear and tear items which we fully replaced, like bellows and, you know, lenses and you know, trim and rubbers and so on. But it doesn't stop there. We go all the way down into all of the mechanics. So you'll find that cars like this over the course of time have started to develop, you know, trouble with their the air conditioners, and you know, there's warm, well, various little kind of issues that start to kind of crop up. Each and every one of those aspects is fully, you know, obviously fixed by us and fully replaced. And then, since we go that far, we can't seem to stop. So we kind of replace absolutely everything, and you get this wonderful 35 odd year old car, and more in certain cases, which is 100% new. And I mean that aesthetically as well as, importantly, mechanically. Everything is rebuilt. Everything is rebuilt. Braking, suspension, obviously transmission, the motor we'll get to at the end, fully rebuilt. All the electrics. The car is built from scratch, and you'll see some images of kind of previous stages or incarnations of the car as we work through her. But let's have a look inside. So I don't know, let's take a look at this, for example. If you're going to do it right, right? Just steal a few words from, I think, Wham. But let's have a look in the front here to give you an idea. So, yeah, carpeting. Obviously, we've got matching carpeting. We've got little leather details which we quite like. Let's pull this away and have a look. So, you know, everything is new and or fully refurbished, if not both. So you end up with, you know, what becomes a 100% new car. I could take off the fuse box and show you the beautiful detail in that too, but you might skip the video and move on. So let's get to something more exciting. Okay, so that's kind of broadly speaking, the principle behind this car is that there are very few cars in the world that are classics that are drivable daily. You can do, you know, as many kilometers as you want in this car. It's got air conditioning, it's got ample power, it's extremely comfortable, it's very easy to drive. It is more than just a daily driver. It's a daily driver that you can drive daily to get you from A to B, and it's a daily driver that you want to drive daily. And I'm finding that personally at the moment, which is, you know, driving is I don't know, just a wonderful thing to be able to do. If you're that kind of person, if you're that way inclined, and if you have a car that you enjoy driving, what it does is it converts, or kind of converts, I guess, a chore into something which is hugely, you know, entertaining. I love driving, and frankly, I love driving everywhere. And as long as, however, you know, I'm enjoying the car that I'm driving in. And these kinds of cars, which are classic, which are fun to drive, they have a lot of kind of feedback related to them. They're obviously, you know, aesthetically very pleasing, and it's wonderful to get compliments from pretty much everybody. If you get a car like this and you're able to build it in such a way that it is 100% perfect, there are 400,000-500,000 odd kilometers to still come out of this vehicle. And however long that takes, you know, is based on the next owner and how much he or she wants to spend in her. So, classic Porsches, I think are going to live, I like to use the word forever, and frankly there's no reason that they shouldn't. Right, let's talk about power, or just motor for a second. The 3.2 has a fairly extensive horsepower kind of range based on the compression that it puts out. I just don't have those figures with me at the moment, but you know, invariably the car is a little bit heavier than an SC. It carries a lot more tech inside it. This one happens to be fully loaded, so she's got an air conditioner and a number of other, you know, mod cons. The seats alone, which are electric, add on another 20-30 kilograms. So this is not a light car, but what you get in return is this super solid feeling. And if you have enough power coming out of the car, you know, you just take advantage of the creature comforts, and at the same time, you know, get to kind of whiz around at whatever speed you want to. This motor is still totally new. We've only done about 600 kilometers of testing. She's still opening up, and she's already got a kind of a wonderful drive to her. We can upgrade motors like this. We can obviously increase their compression, or in fact their displacement if we wish. The kind of the engine management system that comes out of Porsche is fairly flexible and can handle, you know, a little bit of modification. But you know, there's also merit in just, you know, not trying to fix something that isn't broken. These things work incredibly well, and hence we just like to stick in certain cases to, you know, kind of the original spec. All that we do, however, is make sure that this car in its original spec is in the condition now that it was the day that it left the factory. I think I mentioned that the Carrera insignia or badge has still got to be placed on this car. We're going to just detail her lightly before we pop her on the ship, and then we'll get her out of here. Okay, the pleasures of Targa versus coupe, goodness me, an endless debate. Comes in waves. I love them all. I love coupes because they, you know, they're that kind of quintessential, I don't know, 911 shape. But Targas are extremely special. If you think of it, they represent a type of model that is fundamentally unique. You know, it's not a convertible and it's not a coupe. It's somewhere in between and gives you the benefits of both. And that's quite unusual. So taking off her top, driving at night, for example, driving in the cold with the heater full on, you know, driving, I don't know, under trees, driving in the open sky. There's something very special about just being able to remove that roof. And yet with the Targa, you can also get the kind of the protection of the rear boom and a lot less wind. And if you close up all windows, in fact, your hair barely moves. So it's actually quite a wonderful design. Aesthetically, it adds a kind of a degree of interest to a car, which I quite like. It is not better than a coupe. They're heavier than coupes, so you know, trying to turn them into massive performance vehicles is somewhat an exercise which is futile. But I think look, let's put it this way: it's time to add one to your collection if you don't have one already, regardless of whether it's your first one or your second one. Maybe that's the best way to look at it. Anyway, so Targas, I'm a sucker for them. I've personally managed to hold on to a Targa. Just have to restore it at some stage, and I love the coupes. This one for me is extremely special. Okay, in terms of the color, we choose our colors extremely carefully. For those that don't know, we don't choose colors off a book and kind of spin them out and see how it goes. We actually choose color in reverse from the interior. So we've got a kind of a clear idea of what kind of interior we want, and then we'll move from the interior out to the paint. You've seen a few green cars coming from us, but this is actually quite a gray car, and she changes color as the ambient light changes. The light's quite warm at the moment because it's later in the evening, but you'll kind of see that as somewhat gray on your screen depending what device you've got. So she's actually got a lot of gray in her, but kind of then presents as green, and you'll see there even just how the kind of the gray converts more to green depending on the angle of the car. But she's certainly a very flat green, if you want to call her green. It's called Godet green is the color. The roof, as I've mentioned, obviously is chosen very carefully to complement that. And yeah, it's a one-off color. The customer or the client and I spent quite a bit of time looking at options, and we came up with this one, which we're very happy with. And that's kind of how we work. We're doing a few cars at the moment where that process also applies. I think, you know, buyers take color very seriously, and they should, frankly. The people that buy cars without considering color, to me, are daring, to say the least. I like to have full control over color, and I'm quite happy to work with clients who you know, want to have color be a very considered decision. We do pride ourselves in the ability to get colors right. You can already notice that given kind of the lateness in the evening, the sun is now set, that this car is starting to get a lot darker in the shade. So she's almost like a solid, well, not a solid green, but very much more green. Whereas if we now go around and have a look at her in more light, you'll notice how the car effectively starts to lighten up. And off she goes. Okay, so let's summarize. This is kind of the last of the series of the G series, 3.2 Carrera. Extremely comfortable to drive. I'm not going to do a test drive in it. It's not going to really show you anything that you don't already know. Extremely comfortable to drive. This is fundamentally a modern driving car in terms of its comfort, with practically in all senses modern performance. But she aesthetically is very unique. She looks significantly more classic than she actually is, but she's not a backdate. We haven't kind of chopped up her front and rear. She is 100% OEM, other than just pure aesthetic tricks. And we've done that because we want this car to be able to perform two roles. For a father who was born in '68 and has a certain relationship with a certain generation of cars, and then a son who was born in 2004, who obviously is informed by other things. And that for me is quite an interesting and special story. So congratulations to the new owner. We're going to pop her on the ship probably in a week's time or so. She heads up to Canada, and if there, with any luck, we might get a few pictures of her with her new roof, and I don't know, whizzing through the snow. So thanks very much for watching, and yeah, we'll keep you informed of all of the upcoming builds. Thank you.